Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Matthew here, and welcome to the first episode of Living Beyond the Cube podcast, where we're helping people get out of the box of the 9 to 5 grind one step at a time. So I'm glad that you are actually here because this is a very big topic to me. For most of my life, I have done what everyone else has wanted me to do, whether it's come with going to school or going to get a job and all these other things, and definitely stepping out of the 9 to 5 box, the 9 to 5 grind has been different. It has been very different. But what I've decided to do is in this first episode, what I wanted to do is at least give you a little bit about myself because I believe that there is a gap. There's a big gap between knowledge of the generations. There's a lot of information that isn't being passed on to the next generations. And I want to have this podcast to be basically like an eye opener and even an opportunity for Gen Z and also for Gen X to be able to have some type of a roadmap and at least have some new ideas on how they can start not only living a life that they desire, but live a life that they are happy and ecstatic to wake up in the morning and actually live. So, without further ado, this episode is really just going to be giving you a little background about myself because I know a lot of people will be wondering, well, who is Matthew and all this other stuff. So, that's basically what this episode is. So, I basically come from a typical black background. Grew up in a single parent household, and from an early age, I saw how hard my mom actually worked. She was working 2 to 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And at that time, I actually ended up, I think I was about the age of 12, and that's when the iPod Touch had just came out. So my friend had just got the iPod Touch, and I was like, man, look, if I want this iPod Touch, I need to go ask my mom. So I went to go ask my mom for this iPod Touch. And to my surprise, or it really wasn't to my surprise, but she said no. However, this no was a little bit different. And you may be thinking, like, how is the no different from any other time? Well, this time, it was a little bit of sadness on her face when she actually said no. And I think at that time, the iPod Touch may have been like, $200 or something like that. I know it's a lot more expensive these days, but basically, I saw this look on her face and I was like, that's kind of a little bit different. So about 2 or 3 days later, she actually called me into the living room and she said, hey, Matthew, I need you to come in here. And she has her laptop with her. So I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, what's going on? And this is the first time that she actually has sat me down and she says, look, you've been doing really good in school. You've been keeping your grades up. You've been doing things around the house, doing your chores, keeping up with everything. And I personally believe that you deserve this iPod. However, I cannot afford it. And she went on to show me this spreadsheet, this Excel spreadsheet that had the income coming in and the expenses going out. And I saw a bunch of red, if I'm really being transparent. And she was like, right now we are barely making ends meet, and it's really by the grace of God that we are still able to, be able to basically handle things, or I'm able to handle things, and this is the reason why I can't get you the iPod Touch. And at that moment, when I ended up leaving, I said, you know what? When I end up having kids, I do not want the reason that I can't get them something be because we do not have the money. So, like anybody else, I started to think, well, what is it that I can do? Well, I would hang out with my friend's dad, and I decided that, hey, look, if they have a lifestyle that I desire to have, he had the nice car, the Lincoln Navigator on 22s, and they had a nice house. They had the big screen TV. He had, PlayStation 2s, PlayStation 3s, and all this stuff. So I was like, you know what? I need to figure out what his dad is doing, and I need to go do that. So this is actually what sparked my interest to go and pursue a career in engineering. And really, truth be told, it seemed like it was the best option. Not only was my friend's dad an engineer, but I also had two other people that I now look up to as big brothers. And they too were engineers. They were living in these condos out on the beach. They had these nice cars. And I was like, man, I want to be an engineer because obviously being an engineer is what's going to give me this lifestyle. I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be able to have all this stuff. Well, I thought I was on the right track. I went and got my degree. I landed a great job. And I was living what people call the dream. But there was still something missing. Despite making good income, I was not happy. I felt stuck. I felt unfulfilled. And I felt like I was just going through the motions. And it even came down to a point where I was living paycheck to paycheck, constantly stressed about money and wondering if this was all there was to life. So I started asking myself some hard questions. Is this really something that I want to do for the next 30 years? Am I living life on my terms or am I living life on someone else's? So to answer those questions, the first one is no. This is not something that I want to do for the next 30 years. And yes, I am living life on someone else's terms and I'm not living life on my terms. So then the last question came up, and this is a really big one that you have to also ask yourself. I would say that these three questions are questions that you want to ask yourself, but this big one is very important. What will it take to break free and create a life of freedom and purpose on your terms? That's a big question. Many people do not know the answer to those questions. But you need to sit down and you need to really think about what it is that you really want. Don't think about what your mom wants for you. Don't think about what your dad wants for you, what your grandparents, uncles, aunties, what your friends, your girlfriend, maybe even your wife or your husband. What is it that you want? Go look in the mirror and I want you to look yourself in the face. Look yourself in the eyes and see, are you happy with where you are right now? And if not, you're going to have to make some changes. So that's actually what led me to start this podcast. I know that I'm not alone. So many people are stuck in a job that they do not love and are living for the weekends and dreaming of something more, but you just don't know where to start. That's why I started Living Beyond the Cube podcast, because I want to help people break out of that corporate 9-to-5 mindset and start living a life that they truly desire. And I want to have real conversations on here. You know, I watch so many people, Gary Vee, Myron Golden, Alex Hormozy, and many other people, and I watch them and they tell you things that are true. I believe that the steps and things that they give you are very true. However, for someone that's like me and someone that's like you, I believe that there's a disconnect. So as I stated earlier, there's a gap. You have these people that are extremely successful, and although you see the success and you hear what they're saying and it makes sense, there's still this gap of like, man, I really don't know if I can do it. Like, I really don't know if that could really be me. And they're so far up here and I'm so far down here. How can that even work? Well, that's why I'm here to bridge that gap, because I'm right in the middle in between both of you guys, where I can see and I've tasted a little bit of that, and I know that it's possible for you to do it, but there are some things that you have to do. Now, here, I'm not here to sell you a whole bunch of fluff. I'm not here to sell you, things that are not going to help make your life better. And a lot of people will even say, well, is this a get rich quick scheme, or, all these different things? And here's what I want to say to you. Who wants to get rich slow? You have two people. I'll give you an example. You have two people. One person or both people make $1 million. However, the difference is one person, it takes them 40 years to make $1 million. The next person, it takes them 2 years to make $1 million. Who is rich? I hope that the answer that you actually chose is the person that earned the $1 million in 2 years. Now, if you didn't, you may be asking, well, how is that person richer when they actually both earned $1 million? And the answer is because of the time that it took for them to make $1 million. For 40 years, you can go and you could earn $25,000 a year. Or you can go and you can earn $1 million in 2 years or even 1 year. You're going to be more richer when you are able to earn money fast. And in this podcast, we're going to be talking about that. And this leads me to what we're going to be, what you should expect from this podcast. Number one, we're going to be talking about mindset shifts. And this is the biggest awakening that I had, is that you need to focus on your mindset. We're going to be diving into how you can break free from limiting beliefs and adopt a new mindset of someone who is taking control of their life. Now, the second thing is going to be money management. We're going to talk about financial literacy, because many people do not know about finances. You weren't really taught about anything about finances except, you need to save your money for a rainy day and, all this other stuff. But you have not actually been told and taught about financial literacy. And that is about how to get out of debt, how to save effectively, and how to build wealth. Number three, which is one of my favorite topics, and this is probably going to be a lot of what's really going to be going on, but talking about entrepreneurship. I believe that no matter if you like your 9-to-5 job, that you should at least have some type of side hustle or some type of thing going on the side that's going to bring you income, some type of money system. And with entrepreneurship, it's possible for you to have that. So whether you're looking to start a side hustle or transition to running your own business full time, we're going to be talking about strategies, and I'll be sharing lessons that I have learned along the way about being able to be successful within entrepreneurship. But as I stated earlier, it's going to first start with your mindset. Now, number four, we're going to be having interviews with people that are basically walking the path of entrepreneurship and changing their life. People who were in the 9-to-5, or maybe they started out as, an entrepreneur, and then they went to a 9-to-5, and then they went back to entrepreneurship. We are going to be talking about that because it is very important, and I would like to actually have other people here to share their story, because I may not be able to connect with you on all topics, and I want to be able to make sure that I'm able to reach as many people as possible. And the way that I believe I can do that is, one, by sharing my story, but then also bringing other people on to share their stories with you. And number five, the last one, I'm going to be giving you actionable steps at the end of every episode. Now, one of the biggest things that I have discovered with this journey of entrepreneurship and changing my mindset is the fact that people that gain knowledge, and I used to be one of those, information hoarders is what I actually call them, or used to call myself. But don't just hoard information. Take the information and apply it. Some things you may go and apply and it may work. Some things you may go and apply and it won't work. But what I'm going to be sharing with you are things that have worked for me, but you will never know if it works or if it doesn't work if you never take the steps. So at the end of each episode, I'm going to give you some practical takeaways on what you can actually do to take that first step to get started in whatever direction it is that you need to be going in. Now, this is my promise to you. I promise that I'm going to be keeping it real. I'm going to keep it a buck thou wow, as I used to say when I was in college. I'm going to keep it a buck. I'm going to keep it 100. Keep it real. Because this is real life. This is your life. Many people will say that you only live once. Well, if you only live once, what are you doing every day? I actually change that around and say you don't only live once, you die once, but you have an opportunity to live every single day. And that's what I want to help you do. I want to make sure that I give you the truth and that is fully authentic. That way you can go out there and live a truthful life every single day and actually be able to enjoy the life that you are living. Now, you may be sitting there thinking to me, or sitting there thinking like, Matthew, why does that matter so much to me? And the reason why this matters so much to me is because I have been where you are. And really, truth be told, I'm actually where you are right now. And this is part of me documenting the process to be able to let you know that, hey, it is possible for you to do this. Right now, currently, I am working a 9 to 5. I still have an engineering job. However, what I have done is I have invested in myself. And even as you can see right here, for you guys listening on the podcast, you can go on the YouTube video and watch this. But I have my personal library back here. And this is just like not even all of my books, because I actually have a pantry that's in my apartment that I'm not using to store food because it's just me, and I utilize that to actually store my books. And you need to start reading. You need to start reading, and you need to start having different ideas going in your mind, and that's what's going to help you by reading books, by listening to audios of people that are actually there, actually going and challenging what your thoughts were about a certain thing and seeing if you need to change that. And the way that you would know if you need to change it is if you think about something and it's not the way that you would like for it to be, you probably do not understand it. Say, for instance, with money. I used to think that money was just for paying bills and going out and having fun. I didn't realize that you could utilize money, put it to work, and then you could utilize the money that your money makes to then go out and buy those things. So I want you to know that this is not going to be something that's just all willy-nilly. It's going to happen super fast. For me, it started in small shifts, and that's what I actually want you to focus on. I want you to focus on taking one step at a time. One step at a time. There's this concept that's called compound interest. Okay, compound interest. And most people only relate compound interest to money. However, compound interest also works in your life in different areas. I was listening to Myron Golden, and he said that he was on a plane with a physicist. And he was sitting next to the physicist, and he introduced himself. The guy said he's a physicist, and basically somebody that studies physics. And he said, what is your favorite physics principle? Myron Golden asked the guy that. And the guy said, all principles are microcosmos of each other. Now, what does that actually mean? What that means is you can take one principle, and if it's a principle, if it's a true principle, it should be able to work no matter what arena you put it in. So with compound interest, that is one of the principles that work. Whether you're talking about getting in shape, whether you're talking about your finances, whether you're talking about maybe moving up in your career, maybe you're talking about getting started in entrepreneurship, all those areas are able to benefit from compound interest. So if you take small steps each and every day over the course of 365 days out of the year, at the end of the year, you're going to be up 365%. But then maybe the next year, you're not up 365%. You actually end up being double that, maybe even triple that, maybe even quadruple that. But you have to take the first step and take those small shifts. Now, the first thing that we're going to be talking about is managing your money better. And this is really going to be probably one of the most difficult things because you've had bad habits for so long. But we're going to talk about managing your money better, exploring entrepreneurship, but most importantly, changing your mindset. And over time, those small steps, as I stated earlier with the rule of compound interest, over time, you're going to see that those small steps are going to take going to turn into big results. So that's why I'm here, to help you take these first steps and to keep you moving forward. So now that you know a little bit about me, what is this podcast? Or now that you know about me and this podcast, I actually want to hear from you. What is your biggest challenge right now? What is keeping you stuck at your 9 to 5? And I want you to actually send me a message or leave me a comment wherever you're listening to this podcast. So if you are actually listening to this podcast on Spotify or you're listening to it on Apple Podcasts, I want you to go to livingbeyondthecube.com and I want you to leave a comment there. But if you're watching this on the YouTube, just go ahead and put a comment down below. What is keeping you stuck? And I want this to be a conversation. I want to be able to help you. I want to know what you are struggling with so I can cater this podcast towards you and at least share my thoughts. And even some of the times people don't realize that they go through the same stuff that other people go through, but because of you being you, you have a different life experience. So I want to be able to make sure that this podcast resonates with you. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave a review, because not only does that help me, but that helps other people find this podcast so that they can change their life as well. So without further ado, I want to say thank you for tuning in to Living Beyond the Cube, where we're helping people break free out of the 9-to-5 grind, one step at a time. And this is just the beginning. I'm excited for you to be on this journey with me. And remember, you don't have to escape the grind all at once. It's about taking one step at a time, and I'm here to help guide you every step of the way. So until next time, take care, and I'll see you in the next episode of Living Beyond the Cube.